it seems to me, from my perspective, that there's I don't even know how many people or teachers of Aikido there are around the world, heaps. From my perspective, I've only ever seen a handful of people who, and you're included in this, people who justify the art, to put it into the terms that you were speaking about before. The people, if Aikido in and of itself is a good martial art and works, there's only a few people who can actually do it.
Yes.
And they all exist in the same place.
Yes.
They all know each other.
Pretty much.
So there's only a small sect of people in a very obscure part of the world, which is Melbourne here. And they're all the people who you're connected with, and Master Brown as well, are the only people who seemingly can do it. What's up with that? What's going on there? Because it makes sense why possibly the general opinion of Aikido, when people look at it out across the world, whether they see it in real life or they see it on YouTube or they even hear someone talk about it, the opinion usually isn't that stellar for a lot of people, because it seems that most people aren't doing it justice at all.
Better teachers, I think. We've been fortunate enough to have, firstly a phenomenal Japanese teacher that came out who was very, he was quite low key, man. Like, he wasn't showy offy at all in his older years. He was a unit in his younger days, but had a very non-personal, influential form of Aikido. When you saw his Aikido, Seiichi Sagano Shihan, his Aikido didn't have a lot of flash of personality to it. When you see, example, Steven Seagal, there's a lot of flash of personality to him. There's a lot going on. And then there's the technique inside of it all. Chiba Sensei, who was also like one of the teachers or students at the same time as Sagano Sensei, his personality came through his Aikido. Very bold, powerful form of Aikido that turns up. So Saito Sensei had a way in which he did Aikido. And what's easier to do than the art is to emulate the person, to mimic the teacher. So with Sagano Sensei, it's quite funny looking at some of his students now that have these, they've picked up the mannerisms of how he would hold himself as opposed to the way in which he would do the technique. And he had very particular mannerisms, especially the way in which he holds his hand and would sort of present certain ways. But they were minimal compared to the rest of the people. So we had this really, really clear picture of what Aikido looked like without the interruption of the person presenting it. So that's the first step. And he was a direct student of O-Sensei. And every student that came from O-Sensei, the founder of Aikido, every one of them is different. And it's phenomenal. So there's this freedom of expression as a person coming through Aikido. But Sagano Sensei didn't necessarily have a lot of his own personal attitude to or influence over the form of Aikido. So it's a very truthful visualization of what Aikido looked like. And then we had Master Brown, who was a student, one of his first handful of students of Sagano Sensei, who has a phenomenal mind of breaking down things, tearing it apart, analyzing it, putting it all back together and making it better. So in that aspect, his mind that he brought into Aikido gave greater insight into the Aikido itself. So we got we had the Aikido of how it looked like, and then we had this mind that was able to pull it apart intricately and go, oh, look at that. That's why that works like that. Cool. Wind it back in and spruce it up. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's connected through here. Oh, okay. And so he was able to sort of tease everything out, and has a phenomenal way of explaining Aikido. So we began the conversation by saying it's really hard to define what Aikido is.
Yeah.
And Master Brown has a phenomenal way of explaining what Aikido is as you're learning Aikido. So his ability to tease it out and tell you what's going on is beyond anyone. Absolutely beyond anyone. Malcolm McRae Sensei is just a phenom of Aikido, and has an insight into it, and his ability to explain how he does it is amazing, and his insight into explain how he does is phenomenal. I don't think there's many better at doing it than Malcolm McRae Sensei in that light. And then myself, who has taken a different approach and looking at the methodologies of the art. Why does that exist to form Aikido? Why is this here to make Aikido? Why when it is there to make that, does it repeat over here? Backtrace it, reverse engineer it into it, pull it back out. Great. And for me, that gives me the opportunity to go, this way of doing Aikido has merit, and this way of doing Aikido has merit, and this way of doing Aikido has merit. Whereas I think most teachers kind of go, that way of doing Aikido, shit, that's just wrong. So even Aikidoku are highly critical about Aikido itself. Or Aikido, the practitioners of Aikido are critical of the practitioners of Aikido. And I can be the same, but I can also see something and go, okay, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can see how and why that exists and how it should work if it's not working optimally or efficiently. So in that span of 4 generations from Ho Sensei, we're beginning to have 4 different views from Aikido, all directed back to the same thing, which is important because now at this point in time, as now the decades go on, is Aikido just becomes so disparate and nobody's really trying to join it back. They just, because it falls under the title of Aikido, it's just Aikido, but no one's really trying to work out why that Aikido is there and this Aikido is here.